Give us your background in this. How did you find yourself into the world of strength and conditioning? And how did you find yourself coming up with a definition for it, like what I just said?
Yeah. So I've been a personal trainer for it's approaching just over 20 years now.
Mm.
Um, and when I started in the gym, I was very drawn to powerlifting. And that kind of, I think, sets the stage for all the unconventional things because you're going through your education and your schooling and you're being told all like the best proper ways to do everything. And then I'm like looking at this group in the corner with chalk dust flying around everywhere, backs are bending, heavy weights are being moved, and um, I just had to go that direction to see what was going on over there. So that kind of started everything for me. And I competed competitively in powerlifting for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And the peak of it was more so an accumulation of injuries for me
Yeah.
over the years where uh, as a trainer and like working full time that way and supporting a family and stuff, like I had to make some moves. Body was getting really broken. Still love the sport. Still practice it quite a bit today, but
Mm.
I had to search for more stuff. I think too, as someone in the field, as coaches, we really always are looking for things that just keep us evolving, making us better coaches. And maybe I was feeling a little bit limited with just honing in on that kind of world of things. I got in the job with the Canadian military.
Mm.
So, how it works back home, we have a civilian trade that you can go in and work as a trainer. Like they hire trainers come in, help members get deployed and build them up and that sort of thing. So, when I got into that field of work, I started broadening my horizons a bit more and opening up like into performance training and then gymnastics and had to go through quite a bit of a transformation in
Mm.
my own body. The last injury I had, I was tipping the scales at around 110 kilos,
Mm.
close to that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like 90 kilos right now. So I was quite heavy,
Oh, wow. So you were,
5'9".
so you
Like
were like twice as big as you are
I
now.
was competing heavy and
Yeah.
I was built to power lift.
Yeah.
So there was quite a transformation process there for me where I had to kind of rebuild my body after that last
Mm.
injury.
What was the last injury? I mean, was it severe?
It was a bicep rupture
Okay.
on my
Yeah, that
left.
qualify as severe.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sucks.
I had more severe injuries than that actually along the way, but that was the one where I was like, what am I doing? I was
Yeah.
like, why do I keep doing this to myself?
And you were doing this to yourself. I mean, were you sponsored at the time? I mean, were you going into an Olympic?
I was
I mean,
working,
did you?
I was competing at a national level. I
Mhm.
was trying to get on the world stage.
Yeah.
So, training, I was all in
Yeah.
right,
So
right
you were
there.
basically full time doing this.
Yeah.
This was your full goal
Yeah.
within training.
Yep. That
Got it.
was really bought into that was what the goal was. And I just couldn't keep up with the training at the time. Life was just crazy. I think that's, you always obsess over why injuries happen
Mhm.
after they happen, right? You're like, oh, well, maybe it was this or maybe it was that. And it's just, an accumulation of fatigue and living a life as a father and trying to keep up in that area and work and all this sort of stuff kind of led me in able to balance everything at the time.
Within the realm of powerlifting, do you think because this is not the first time I've had somebody in your shoes telling me about injuries that have resulted from a lifestyle spent circled around powerlifting.
Yeah.
Within that world, are these injuries the result of overtraining, or are they result of perhaps a lack of recovery?
Hmm. I think it's on my own reflections is maybe harder to pinpoint because it's like you almost can't predict injuries sometimes. Like you can in some ways, like I've thought of some injuries where I'm like, I was definitely working through some stuff there that I should have backed off on.
Mhm.
And there's other times when injuries happen, you're like, there was nothing that I could
No
have thought of.
predictors.
Everything was feeling good.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the quad tears, you're like, what's
Oh,
going on? Right. Like,
and these are extreme injuries: ruptured
yeah,
bicep, torn quad.
yeah,
They happen like in an instant. Like you
yeah. And
knew
it's a
you tore your.
lifestyle for this in the scene. When you're in the scene, like competing with guys at that level, it's almost like it becomes a lifestyle. Everyone's working through some shit.
Wow.
Everyone's kind of injured in some way, and it's just like part of the game.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that culture is something too that as it continues to happen, you find yourself just kind of doing that, right?
Mhm.
And for me, getting to that point, I think at the time I was approaching 30, I was like, 10 years from now, I want to be feeling like I can do a lot more than this. I want to
Yeah.
be able to, you know, play with my kids, do some other things,
Yeah.
keep up
Oh,
sort of thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
the term longevity starts to make its way into a lot of different people's training modalities when they
For
start
sure.
getting injured. And right around the time they hit 30.
Yeah.
There's something about the age of 30 where you do realize, okay, I'm starting to realize I'm not quite as invincible as I once believed.
Yeah.
I've had maybe 4 to 6 injuries that have knocked me out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Do I want to keep doing this? It seems like my injury recovery rate is a little slower as time
Right.
is going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And this, so you have, I know since this time, because of the stuff I see you doing, this isn't powerlifting. I mean, you've completely redefined your training modalities.
Right.
Where did that transition start?
Yeah, for sure. Around that time, I was recovering from that last injury, and I was kind of just starting to kickstart the, training and transformation stuff. I was like, okay, diet and check, and started doing some conditioning, some basic bodybuilding stuff, and just like also not really even feeling that. It's like, for me, I need purpose in my training. And that's, I think, why I love powerlifting so much. It gives you this purpose and end goal that you're working towards. And a few months into that, it's like I'm trying to get myself in shape, but I'm just like so stagnant and like
Mm-hmm.
not motivated to do any of
Mm-hmm.
it. Right? Like, what am I doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
A old friend of mine that was a military member used to train with me had disappeared, and when that happens, usually maybe posted out somewhere, deployment or something.
Sure.
He shows up. It's been maybe a year since I've seen him, and he's like running the track. He's in crazy shape, and he's doing calisthenics training, and I'm just like, what have you been doing? Like, I want that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on? So he kind of moved in that direction of bodyweight training and conditioning, and he recommended a book to me called Overcoming Gravity. I don't know if you've heard of that book by
I haven't. Yeah.
Stephen Lowe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it really talks about gymnastics training for the everyday person. How do you do this? What is it beyond push-ups and dips and pull-ups? And
Oh yeah.
it was the first time I got into like straight arm strength, static lever training, and like all this different world was there that I
Mm-hmm.
just hadn't been exposed to, and it very much connected with me like powerlifting. It's very strength based,
Mm-hmm.
like very strength focused, like heavy calisthenics type work. So I was all of a sudden inspired. I was like, I want to get into this stuff. Well, my mobility was terrible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you start doing that stuff. You're inspired, but I'm like, you need flexibility to do a lot of this stuff. You need to be moving well. And that's what really spawned the whole like, okay, can I change
Mm-hmm.
my ability to move well, like my flexibility as an adult?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I start doing the stuff I think a lot of us do. You start going to yoga, you kind of start going to those scenes where people are doing that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and just wasn't finding any answers. As a strength coach over the years, I was kind of a part of that whole evolution of mobility training where we saw it, come out of the excitement of like CrossFit blowing up,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone wants to be a badass now, but no one moves well. So we're all like, how do
Right.
we get these people moving well and doing crazy shit they want to do, right? So a lot of the mobility training that initially had come out, I didn't find much use in it myself with how my own training and how it's helping people. Like it kind of just seemed more like an extra thing that wasn't, um, I guess, doing anything productive. Like I wasn't seeing change in it,
Mm-hmm.
or so trying to actually find avenues where or areas of disciplines that train these things. I went to a circus class.
Really?
Yeah,
Crazy. Yeah.
there's a circus place in town. It's called Atlantic Circ, and they offer adult classes for like handstands and just like flexibility things. And
Right. Yeah.
they train flexibility on like a crazy level of flexibility. Um, I started looking more into gymnastics and finding at that time it was around 2007, 2008,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe 2010. I'm sure. Yeah, I think it was maybe 2010. This like gymnastics scene was growing. Adult gymnastics
Especially for
training,
adults.
strength
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christopher Summer. I was finding his work. He was promoting a lot of this stuff at the time. Building the Gymnastics Body was another book, like his book, and I got into his training, which offered mobility training through in a different way I'd never really thought about or trained before. It was basically strength training. So I was doing a lot of weighted stretching. I was doing a lot of these movements that were actually, moving me through a greater range of motion and working towards a flexibility goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of light bulbs started going off. And I was thinking about like having these targets now of what flexibility would be. Like, what should I work towards
Like
rather
what?
than,
Being able to do the splits all three
yeah,
ways, like
being
that
able
kind
to
of
touch my
thinking.
toes, being
Yeah.
able to move my body in ways rather than just doing a bunch of stuff. And then at the end, you feel good, but
Hmm.
you're kind of still not able to present that range of motion you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, through that process, I did start working towards bigger positions like splits, back bends, um, and learning how to reverse engineer these positions and
Hmm.
what that looks like as an adult.
Hmm.
So it's like these doors start opening. I start making progress, and I kind of see all these things happening. I'm then thinking about, okay, as a coach, this offers a lot of value for people out there that, think it's all genetic. It's like, oh, flexibility is just a genetic thing.
Hmm.
You got it or you don't, right? You can't change range of motion. Or B, um, they just really don't know what they should be working for. They don't know how to approach it the way we approach strength training or, traditional methods of training.
Hmm.
So this is where, this range of strength theme starts coming into play where, like, how can we create programming in a way where it moves people in the direction of improving their flexibility so they can keep doing a lot of the cool things they like to do. I still do squat and deadlift and bench, and that's been a part of the journey that I've been bringing back in to say, like, you know, maybe I'd had it wrong when I was doing it
Hmm.
back then. Maybe I don't need to go to worlds or do it at that level, but certainly it's not bad for me to still train those things if everything's feeling pretty
Definitely.
good and you learn how to kind of take care of yourself a bit better.
I would add a third point to your list, and that is the ability to find flexibility as an adult is something
Yeah.
a lot of people don't think you can do.
No.
I mean, my story is almost the opposite of yours. I was a gymnast when I was 8, so I did gymnastics from 8 to 16. And I mean, when you're a kid, you're basically rubber, so you can do all that stuff a heck of a lot easier
Yeah.
than when you're 30. And I found, I mean, I never ever competed anywhere near anything impressive for powerlifting at all, but I found a love for the movements that are done in competitive
Right.
powerlifting during college, during that time of my life. And I went through the, ego lifting heavy phase, just like all the rest of us did, got hurt like all the rest of us did,
Yeah.
then learned the balance of both. But I, like you, kind of arrived at what seems to be the same conclusion, which is the combination of several modalities within
Yeah.
strength training
Yeah.
provides the best well-rounded results and can apply to fully grown adults. It's not something you're born with. You're, yes, all right. So maybe you won't ever be a Team USA Olympian. This is true, but you have the ability to learn a lot of the different moves, the stretches, the mobility that they teach you when you're an 8, 9, 10, 11-year old inside of a gymnastics class,
For
even as
sure.
an adult.
So, Lucas, after getting injured and you started going to these yoga classes and these circus classes, how quick was it when you started actually doing the proper stretch training and all that? You started feeling better. Like you noticed it. You're like, oh, there's something to this. And were you lifting during that time as well? Or were you strictly focusing on the classes of yoga and circus?
The lifting was really shifted more towards, like, I'd say bodybuilding type stuff. I was just like trying to go to the gym, train my muscles, and feel good, and that's stayed true since day one. I've always how everything started. When I powerlifted, I did that stuff, and that's always been there. But I very much kind of leaned into that and I've done that in a lot of times when I'm trying to figure stuff out. Because a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm going to lose my gains. It's like, you're not going to lose your gains. Just shift a little bit here. You can still get a pump. You can still do some old school stuff like that, but just make some time, right? And that's the thing, make some time to go in and prioritize that over everything else. Um, yeah, I think that first year was just trying to find the right approach, like trying to really, even connecting with Coach Summer stuff. It was actually through another guy, Matt's Train. He's on Instagram. He's 60 now, in his 60s, but he was in his 50s when I found him.
Matt's train, MATS.
MATS, yeah, TRANE. Um, Still
We
crushing.
don't follow him, but you'll have to go to the open search bar.
He should follow him
MATS.
though.
MATS. Yeah,
Matt's.
there
There
he
you go.
is.
Oh,
So he's 61 now. I think at the time he was
wow.
just turning 50 that I found him, or maybe
Oh
just
wow,
under. But
That's
he's in
incredible.
great shape.
phenomenal
He's
shape.
just like trains the basics. He had a huge improvement in his flexibility.
Mhm.
And that
Did he
was,
find it later in life
yeah,
too, like as
yeah,
an adult?
yeah, like in his later 40s.
That's insane.
Wow.
That's insane for a 61-year-old.
Yeah,
Oh my
he's a
word.
beast. He goes hard.
Climbing the rope with no wow.
And it's funny, I had him on the podcast as well too, in the Range of Strength podcast, and we had a chat, and he went through very much the same thing where he was just like trying to build habits again and get his body moving. He was a skater,
Yeah.
younger in his body, he was pretty banged up, and he was trying to. I think a lot of us try to find. It's like when you go back to old faithful stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, man, this doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That's the common theme with a lot of people's. They stop training because they're just like they don't know what other things or other options are out there for training. There's so many options. There's so many ways to train.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, going in and smashing the weights and doing this kind of thing you were first initially shown. It's like look for that other maybe individual that, Matt. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
guy's great shape. I want to get in shape like that. He's doing gymnastics, he's stretching, he's working towards flexibility goals and move I think that's where a lot of people get stuck in this one way of thinking. There's so many things to do. And that whole experience for me just really, I think, opened the doors for like that unconventional presentation. And I really lean into that these days with my content because I just love sharing with people all the weird shit that athletes and people are doing around the world
Mm-hmm.
to train, to get strong, to move better, to feel good, and that connects with people that are out there that are in that same situation where they just kind of, I think, get stuck and feeling like, I'm just maybe bored of training or it just doesn't feel good when I go do that old same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other things out there.
The two things you just mentioned, bored with training, and I don't know what else is out there. Keeping a big, wide library of movements sort of at your disposal, and especially within the realm of your training. I mean, for me, I was just really fortunate in the beginnings of my training was with a guy named Ian Danny, who's one of the top. No, he's the now that Paul Quinn's passed, he's the top strength coach most likely in the world, and he's who does the NFL over in Scottsdale. Being taught the right way at first
Mm.
is something I've completely at the time took for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did and what he has implemented and really just shown to work at the highest possible level is taking from all different modalities,
Yeah.
combining powerlifting, strength training, powerlifting, endurance, field work, all of that kind of stuff, put together the pieces of the puzzle to create a athlete that will stay that level of athletic for years.
Mm-hmm.
Longevity is the result of proper structure, and proper structure involves the knowledge of all those different areas. I feel like a big problem people find. I mean, you mentioned powerlifting and CrossFit. Those are two perfect examples for what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
People who get pigeonholed into this idea that I'm a CrossFit athlete. I'm going to do CrossFit workouts, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's my thing from now on. Well, that leads to boredom and injury,
Mm-hmm.
almost certainly.
Yeah.
You're discounting the entire rest of the pieces of that puzzle where your joints, the stabilization within your body, your endurance and your strength is never going to be the problem if you're a CrossFit athlete. Those two boxes will always be checked.
Yeah.
But you've got a whole litany of other issues that you're going to run into and not address if you've closed off your mind to the possibility that those other modalities have something to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's like that. I see that identity piece, the networking piece of training. Because
Mm-hmm.
even for me too, like finding mats and then finding this like community of people that were doing this stuff, I was like, oh, this is my jam now. It's right. It's like that was cool. Now all these other people are doing it, and it's makes it more exciting to kind of see people doing those things, and it's like a powerlifting community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then but then I left that because I kind of got bored and stale. I made some progress, but then it's again same thing with gymnastics. And at my age, it's like, how far am I going to take that? You start climbing.
How old are you now?
41 this year.
Oh,
next
wow.
month.
I thought you were 41.
Yeah. So
Good for
I
you,
mean,
man.
at that time too, it's like you start realizing what it takes to do certain things, and if you have the build for it. I don't really have the build for a lot of the gymnastic skills at that time, even though I keep them in my training.
Mm-hmm.
Keep a lot of the basics in there, but starts getting to that same thing where it's like, what should I work towards now? Like, I don't really feel like I could get a planche.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want to train planche 6 days a week and sacrifice a lot of other things. You know,
Mhm.
a planche is like when you're doing the plank and you're hovering.
And your feet are hovering behind you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Parallel bars. A lot
Crazy
of times
badass.
it's very, very impressive. You've mentioned several times here the concept of needing a goal, striving for a goal, having to have something that you're trying to shoot for. What and we're I mean it
Go
could
for
not
it. You're good.
could not possibly be a better time to address this particular issue because we're at the beginning of a new year. Seems like everybody's got something that they're working for.
Yeah.
How important is it for somebody to have a goal? And how exactly would you advise that people structure the execution for that goal? Because it seems like people either don't have a goal at all, they just want something,
Mhm.
or even tougher, they have a goal, but they have no idea how to actually go about executing it.
I think the problem with a goal is that it creates that finish line scenario, and some would say. And it's important to have goals and you need them, but it's like, losing 30 pounds. Okay, where does that get you? It gets you to that finish line, and then what? You're done. And then you put it back on, and then you wait till next year or that sort of thing. So I think it's the whole mindset shift of the goal. It's like, where's the goal going to take you? And where do you want it to take you? Do you want to be back here again next year, where now you're trying to find a goal or the next new thing that's being promoted to get you in shape? Or are we maybe going to prioritize improving your range of motion and flexibility so you can move better? And then if your training's right, all the other stuff happens. If you're
Mm-hmm.
getting your workouts in, if you're feeling good about your workouts and you're enjoying them, all the other habits tend to just kind of start happening. Because then you actually care about that workout. Oh, I don't want to mess this up. What should I do? Start eating more protein. You should probably get to bed a bit earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
Don't
the
drink.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the point. I think a lot of people are missing is training. Like the physicality of it is you get that up, and then you'll feel well enough that a lot of this shit takes care of itself
Mm-hmm.
around it. So I always focus on that, and you'll notice my content. I don't talk much around my nutrition as much. It is important. I just have never wanted that to be my goal for people because I feel like they focus too much on that, and it
And
gets to the point where it's like, are you moving? Are you
I
getting
don't even do
stronger?
I don't even do meal plans.
Yeah,
I don't even
no,
do meal plans for people. Even my own clients. I tell them, listen, why in the world would I charge you for a meal plan? We need to have probably a 10-minute conversation.
yeah,
If I can't explain to you what you should and should not be eating in 10 minutes, I'm a bad coach. And if you can't understand that the problem with your diet is not your food, but your mindset around your food,
mm,
then that's on you, because almost always that's the case. And it's
for
the
sure.
same with training. I love what you just said about the goal thing, because that dispels just about every single New Year's resolution that's out there. It's the unique thing about, now listen, if your New Year's resolution, like mine, is to read the Bible. I want to read the Bible start to cover in one calendar year. Okay. You get to the end of that goal, that's a definable end to that goal. You got there. That's great. Fitness is different. It's very different, because what is really required in order to make a true lifestyle change is
Mm,
just that. You cannot be thinking in terms of, all right, now I reached that, I got to that place that I wanted, I reached that goal. Now what do I do? I've
yeah,
ran out of goals. You still haven't made that switch in your mind where every single other thing, and I love that you said this is a lifestyle enhancement machine. That's what training is inside of the gym. Whatever else it is you want to do in your life,
yeah,
it'll be enhanced if you take the time. And we're talking, I mean, start to finish, drive time, workout, go home, whole thing, 1 hour a day. If 1 hour a day is dedicated toward actual training for your body, you're being selfish for 1 hour out of your day.
mm,
If you can do that, everything else you want to accomplish in that day and that week and that month, it's going to be a lot more productive.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, totally agree. What was I going to add to that too? Oh, I was just going to say, and then it's the people that are consistently working out, choosing their goals. I find myself, it's like I'll end up kind of just like tacking something on what I've been doing. It's
Mhm.
like there's this foundation of things that I'm always going to be doing. Like this year, my goal is to the running game going more. I am doing my conditioning. I'm doing more cardio, but I want to get back into some running. So it's like fitting goals in within your other goals.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of the other area I guess you could talk about with that kind of selection, because other people get hyper focused on it's if you're doing CrossFit, cool. If you're doing powerlifting, cool. But it's not going to harm you to put a little bit of things in there, right? It's not going to harm you. And this is me talking to my former self. Should have done more conditioning, should have done other things. You get wrapped up in that one thing and you think it's all,
Would you have started with the stretching and the mobility as a foundation rather than just jumping into jacking heavy weights? And do you do that with your athletes currently?
I would have if I would have done it this way, because I do also know that there's like some systems and areas where, like at a young age, yeah, you are Gumby and you move really well. So you can be just kind of pushed into positions and forced. And that's not necessarily going to be the best approach for an adult who's stiff and potentially going to tear something when they're introduced to these things. So I think from, like my journey that I took over 3 years to even get to the level that I had gotten to, I think it can be cut in half based on a lot of the mistakes or the trial and error that I had along that way when I work with people now.
Amen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
seriously.
You kind of got to take, as a coach or someone interested in, getting good in those areas, you got to take those leaps and try some shit to figure out, what would be the best thing out of that, right?
Yeah. So let's just say I'm a 25-year-old power lifter and I'm super stiff, some prior injuries. Do you just recommend, hey, you know what? Let's just start out with one yoga class a week. We'll start out with that. Or do you give them a proper stretching protocol every morning, moving the hips and stuff like that?
Well, there has to be an intervention that creates adaptation.
Okay.
And yoga and stretching and limbering up a little bit doesn't do it.
Okay.
It just doesn't do it. So number one, I want to make sure that that's understood, because you probably don't have to stop powerlifting. You probably just need to beef up your accessory work and do a little bit of that extra stuff at the end, or time and that sort of thing. But there does have to be some intervention of intensity that will drive adaptation, will create change. And this is all the good research that we're seeing now coming about stretching, because it's heavily driven by like stretching towards a pain threshold. Oh, stretching is good if it's done at the right intensity, or if it's done this way. So I think that's like the big message to get across for a lot of people is like, you don't need to stretch every day. It's basically strength training if you're doing it at a good way that's organized with your training. You just need to identify some markers of success. So some of those targets, what are some targets we should drive towards? Well, you should have more flexible posterior chain. That's folding down, touching your toes. That could also be a combination of learning how to do that versus just stretching, because some people don't even know how to coordinate their hips and they don't know how to create range, right?
Yeah.
Hanging is my favorite loaded stretch for the upper body. And
just from the hands, from a bar,
just hanging.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you get the argument of like, just do pull-ups. It's like pull-ups doesn't accumulate time in the stretch, and that's what the hang does, is it accumulates time there.
That's also that's saying that people are actually going all the way down through the eccentric phase to the bottom of a pull-up. That's not accounting for the fact that most people don't do that.
Yeah.
Most people are doing
Stop halfway.
kipping pull-ups or halfway down pull-ups. They don't go all the way to the bottom.
Exactly. Right. The person saying that usually hasn't actually held the bottom of a pull-up before.
Yeah.
So yeah, markers of success. And that's the thing, right? Like, also, how do you put a performance measurement on that? Well, we actually did that in the military. There's a hanging test for people that want to do special forces. Can you hang on a barbell or hang on a pull-up bar for 60 seconds? It's actually harder.
It seems like it would be, most people would be like, yeah, I could do that. And then okay, go try. You tell me, you show me that you can hang for me, but just the grip strength aspect alone, most people don't have it at all. The sad and startling fact is that just America, if you just took the average American and asked them, if you hung them over a bar, over a cliff where they would fall to their death.
They can't more than 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, okay, pull yourself up and save yourself.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Or just hang on.
Or just hang on and like that. Yeah. Neither one of those things is going to happen. They can't hold on for a minute, and they certainly can't pull themselves up. Like if they were hanging from a ladder, they would simply fall and die. Yeah. And that's tragic. That's really bad.
It's sad.
It's very sad. It's a sad state that we've gotten to. I don't even know what it's, I mean, because what percentage of Americans can do one pull-up? See if you can Google that and find that out. That's a good piece of information to know. I knew what it was for a while. I knew it was less than half. But I do think that there is certainly I mean, the stuff you're doing is incredibly advanced. It's very, very rare that I find somebody, especially on the internet, that's actually doing stuff where I'm like, okay, no, this is good. There's a good accumulation of knowledge here. There's this great range of motion. There's spinal mobility.
Thank you.
I've got
Yikes.
what does it say?
Only 17.4% of adult men and 4.9% of adult women can do a single pull up.
17% of men. That is sad. Let's just be generous with that and say that means that over 80% of men would just fall to their death if they were
Crazy.
hanging from a bar.
Crazy.
That's crazy. That's sad.
And that's really a goal. Like if you, that could be a singular goal.
That could be a great goal to start out with.
you know, and just like,
Yeah.
it could also just remove a lot of the fluff around everything, because everyone focuses, again, when it comes to training, so many variables and so many things.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to produce the result, the gain, and have the most carryover? And that's really, I think, where flexibility and mobility training has also gone a little too far. It's so watered down now.
Interesting.
It's so watered down. Like so many movements and so many corrective exercises to the point where it's like, how are we evaluating if any of this is actually helping?
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone feels good, okay. And if they're, if we get them moving a bit better, but even in that sense too, it's like if that's also the outcome of a session where you've done 20 corrective exercises, do they have to do that every time
Mm-hmm.
to move a bit better? Like, so I don't know.
I think coaches also get stuck kind of in the paradigm where they know what works for them.
Right.
And that's not what's going to work for everybody that you train. You, as a coach, automatically, I can tell you that I know a few things about you. I mean, I know you have a background in this in some way, shape, or form. You may be a shitty coach, but I know that you at least have a basic understanding of biomechanics. You've probably spent at least 5 to 10 years training yourself. So you may be able to do a certain mobility drill, a certain, series of stretching exercises every time before you train, like me. I mean, I have found what really works for me, and I have a blanket assortment of movements that seem to work for most of my clients, but every single client is different. And I know that. I mean, I know the clients who come in where it's like, all right, we're going to do some hip stretching on the power plate because I know that you constantly struggle with that. You can't bend over and touch your toes. That's always been your issue. All right, well, we're going to do that. We're going to warm up the posterior chain on the reverse hyper, and you're going to stretch and do your toes before we do leg day every single time. But it's very specific to each person. And I think, again, like I said, I think coaches get stuck in a paradigm where they know what works for them. And so they think it works for everybody else.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we have to do. We have to be taking those journeys into like learning different things or trying different things. And I always find myself in that kind of environment, even in my own training, where all of a sudden you got a new case with someone that you're working with and you're like, I got to figure this out because this and this isn't working. What if we tried this? Or what if I, switch this up or start referencing some other stuff that maybe years ago I abandoned? And this is another thing to maybe bring up about as well, is like getting, and I've been there before too, getting trained in a new area and obviously having it conflict with previous thoughts or ideas and thinking you have to completely abandon it. Where I think more so for the last 5 years, I've been going back to the roots of a lot of the things I learned and bringing them back through a new lens and saying, well, how can this be better? How can this be, better for this person, or how can it be changed where it might be more beneficial? So it's, that constant striving to troubleshoot and find a solution, but also not abandoning ideas that previously had and learning to just keep upgrading that whole process.
It's a good thing, I think, to remember, especially for guys who've been, I mean, you've been in the industry, you said 20 years. That's how long you've been.
Years now,
yeah. So, I mean, you and I have both seen the industry expand and the technology of training equipment get wider, and there's more and more stuff. And it seems like just when it's not possible for anybody to make anything new, that something new comes onto the market. And that's great. I think it's a good thing most of the time.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, and it's an exciting process to see the industry, grow and double and triple and just keep going.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, hinge movement's still a hinge movement.
For sure.
It's still important to remember that there are quintessential variables that you must meet each time you're structuring a program. It doesn't matter how great. I honestly, it's kind of the voice I tell myself inside my head when I train. I'm like, nah, none of this fancy stuff matters, man. Nobody cares. You got to still go in here and you still got to do the deadlifts.
Yeah.
You still got to do the squats. It doesn't matter. You got the best barbell in the world. It doesn't matter. You still got to make it suck.
The Stairmaster still sucks.
It still sucks. And then that is the thing. It needs to be hard. Too many people today, I'm seeing this more and more, where people are almost like majoring in a minor and they're minoring in a major. People are skipping the hard steps of training and they're trying to accommodate for that by doing a bunch of other weird stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't skip tough. You have to do stuff that's very, very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, is that that resonates
Absolutely.
with you and your, yeah.
And especially when it comes down to stretching, right? It's this whole idea of like, you know, stretching's a waste of time. It doesn't work. It's like, well, maybe you haven't done it correctly or done it with effort and intensity or in a way that, you know, it's the same thing. It's trying to find, and, you know, if you want to do the fluffy, easier way, that's fine, but just don't complain when the results don't happen or if you don't get the outcome of it, right? So yeah, absolutely. Finding ways to put the right intensity and effort into training, and a lot of stuff nowadays, it seems to be more of a distraction than
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucas, you brought some literature today.
did.
Anything you wanted to cite out of the books or just like recommend to people?
Yeah, well, like the old time training methods have had a bigger impact on my coaching practice and a lot of the things that I share and talk around in the last, geez, when would COVID have been?
2020?
2020, 4 years ago?
Yeah, so
Wow.
around that time.
Trump's back. As of 45 minutes ago.
Dude, we might buy you.
Yeah. You know what? Some people don't sound too scared by that either. It's like,
It's a weird world we're living in.
Yeah. But yeah, I got super hard into old time methods through COVID. Like we're all stuck at home. I had a barbell and some weights. Started doing some old time lifts, Steinborn, tipping the bar,
Yeah.
some Zerchers and stuff. And then actually came across a YouTube account, 61 PWCC, I think is what it was. I think it still is that now. But
That's an interesting name.
Yeah.
it's like
What does it mean?
It's an old pickup truck from the 60s.
Oh, 61 like Chevy or
Oh,
something?
okay.
Yeah, something like that. But,
Yeah.
and he's in his backyard, like training, I believe, in front of that truck. Like,
Okay.
Interesting.
He's doing all of these old time lifts. Like, I mean, the library goes deep. Like, I was in there for an hour plus, just going through all these, and I was just like, wow, this guy trains this stuff.
Yeah, CP.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find this.
That sounds interesting.
He's on Instagram. It's Strongman Archaeology.
Okay, you probably follow.
I love that name.
So that's
actually a cool name.
yeah, he's
Strongman.
there he is.
There he
James
is.
Fuller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the
wait a
truck.
minute. I've seen this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, this dude's a beast.
I've
He still
seen
goes
this
hard.
guy. And that's it. I mean, what you're seeing is what you get. It's him
Dude,
in the woods.
mud.
Yeah.
Basically, or I don't know if that's concrete, but
Super raw.
yeah,
Very minimalist. But he's doing
in the snow.
Yeah. But he lives and breathes old time methods.
Yes, he does.
Very
He's pretty old too.
very unrestricted training. Pretty much never uses a squat rack. Like if he's doing squats,
he's picking up off the ground.
Yeah.
he's loading
It's so funny. One of my earliest coaches, that was one of his techniques that he adopted quite quickly, is that he never used a squat rack.
This is impressive.
He would have all of his athletes. He'd be like, I'm not going to put any like restrictions on how much you can squat or how much you can overhead press or any of that, but you got to be able to get it up off the ground. We're not using a squat rack.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that's a very simple cue that if you implement that into your training,
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, your endurance is going to go through the roof because every single time you got to pick that thing up off the ground.
Yeah. Well, and this is what really brought back my love and passion for barbell lifting was spending time. I spent a year working with James. He taught me a lot. Even not just learning the lifts, but learning how to think about training in this way where we're trying to understand what our body needs, which is interesting, right? You start doing these old lifts. Maybe it's a one-hand deadlift.
That incidentally, what he's doing on the stream, the snatch pulls, that's one of my favorite lifts
Great.
with a barbell.
That's a phenomenal.
great lift.
Yeah,
That's
he
a
does a lot of
movement,
high
yep.
pulls.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a wrestler's bridge there. See it?
Yeah, with
The pull over, old school on a piece of wood.
I'm sorry, he's doing a
Neck
You know, when
bridge.
you're on your neck, like
with
Tyson,
yeah.
Mike Tyson would do this.
Oh my gosh.
How
Is he
how old is he? Do you know?
James is in his later 50s now, I think.
Okay.
and he's gonna do a pullover.
Yeah, so that's like the wrestler's bridge pullover press is a very classic.
100, is that 100? Did I say 100
Yeah, it's
pounds?
100
Yep.
pounds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude.
That's impressive.
I had worked up to around that way with a barbell.
Oh,
He's talking.
It's
and he's talking
intense.
while he does it.
That is intense.
I'd gotten up to that around that weight in that bridge, and like, oh my god, the DOMs. Like,
Yeah.
just around here is like my skull had DOMs. It was the weirdest.
I was about to say, how does the blood pressure feel coming through your eyes while you do that?
This
Nope.
guy would be awesome to have on.
Yeah,
No,
you
that guy
would
would be
highly
very
recommend.
cool. Where's he
Yeah.
at? Do you know?
He's in Maine.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So he's stateside. So
Yeah.
he's in
Yeah.
the United States.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Thank you
Very
for
cool.
showing us that,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
That's a great
Well, I
great
mean,
page to follow.
He got me into a lot of this stuff. Like,
Cool.
even made recommendations on these books.
Yeah.
But you know, again, so much out there, and a lot of it's already been done. And you go back to our way of thinking today, right? It's like spine flexion isn't bad. Moving your knees over your toe isn't bad. Moving outside of the lines isn't bad. And that's like the roots of it. These guys, like, if you go through the Max Sick, this is one of my favorites because of the imagery in it, right? Like, it has all the, like, very old, they would take pictures, right? When they could.
Yeah.
And it's like, look at the twisting and the bending.
Uh-huh.
One hand lifting back then was huge. Like,
Yeah. When is back then? When was this written?
Looks like the 20s.
Bronze era
Oh.
is like the late 1800s
Oh, okay.
to the early 1900s. That's the Bronze era. So
Gotcha.
you got like Eugene Sandow, Arthur Saxon, Max Sick. You don't hear about Max Sick much in terms of like those feats of strength, but he was probably the more so the holistic kind of like trying to teach people things. He was doing muscle control. It ended up being called the Max Salding method, but a lot of the muscle control stuff ended up evolving into bodybuilding posing. But they used that as a way to help people understand muscle contraction and breath work. So they would do breath work with the posing. If you're doing like a lat spread, it was a lot of breath work and learning how to actually do that, how to contract that muscle. But he did it with lifting as well, which is kind of cool. Like, there's whole like thing that evolved from it.
Heck yeah.
But Max Sick is another one that I really appreciate for just that aspect of training. Like, their stuff is very documented. They had a lot more principles around what they did than people think. Like, there's even the signs of GPP is in there. They talk a lot about general physical preparation for training. And like, you know, when you get into it, they were quite smart. And there were guys like Max Sick that were trying to, there's actually a periodization table in this that's actually quite funny. They max out every week. They basically test the limit.
Wow.
Right? So he says, you know, attempt a record, and then half the limit, fifth the limit, 2/3 the limit. Like, that's the weekly workout. And then they take
Every week they do that?
Every week they were doing that with like 6 lifts.
Wow. That's aggressive.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure efficient, provided you didn't get injured.
Yeah.
I mean, that your strength gains would be off the charts if that was something if you were maxing out every single week.
And a lot of these lifts were like one hand lifts. The mobility they had to do a lot of these lifts. That was also one of the reasons why I think a lot of this got lost, is because like that used to be your entry point movement in weight room.
Word.
Like, when you walked in, it was like you learned the bench press first before you learned anything else. But the movement itself requires a lot of mobility.
I'll say. I mean, 80% of Americans can't pull themselves up on a bar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good segue to this question. I mean, today we've got more gyms open in America than ever before, yet you've got obesity the highest it's ever been.
Right.
I mean, what happened? Like, how did we go from that to this? Specifically just honing in on strength training. Like, what is it that seems to have been lost along the way?
Well, even during those times, you look back and it's like where all the attention and energy was driven into was making everything more convenient. You know, machines were being built to train on. So like the ones where, you know, you've seen the old videos where they sit down and it's just a vibrate, everything's vibrating.
Yeah,
like,
the waist belt thing they had for a while. Yeah.
So I think it's just that constant pursuit and human evolution of just like, how do we make life more convenient and easier? And that's even happening now with AI and everything, right? It's like, that's where we're driven. We're driven to like find ways to like just I don't know, do nothing.
I just don't see how, but that shouldn't be applied to the gym, to strength training. It's an environment that is literally designed to challenge you. I'm sorry you want everything in your life to be easy. I mean, I want some things in my life to be easy, yeah. But when I go to the gym, I'm not in there so I can do something easy.
Yeah.
And maybe it is as simple as that. Maybe it was, and I don't know though, because a part of me, like I love machine training. Like if it has its place, it
For sure.
does. Just
Yeah.
like everything else we've talked about, barbell, free weight machine, cable, even I mean like band work. You can have a place for each one of these modalities in your training.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. I mean, it seems as though, you look at even the evolution of machines from back to the old school Nautilus to like where it is now.
Yeah.
It does seem like a lot of it has become very dumbed down,
Mhm.
very, this machine does one thing. Here's the little man, his shoulders are red. So that means you should be feeling this in your shoulders.
$10,000 machine.
Exactly. Exactly. It's become dumbed down rather than bringing the population
To the basics.
up to the basics.
Yeah.
We're going to bring the basics way down to the population.
And then they get hurt,
or they
Yeah.
never progress.
Yeah.
Or they, more than likely, they will never progress, because if somebody just goes into the gym and just does machines, you're right. Most likely in the gym, they're not going to get hurt.
That's my only argument with machine training, because I love machine training. I mean, I'm a garage gym guy right now.
Heck yeah, dude.
But, in Texas there, I was just like going to the machine gyms and I was just having some fun. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there, and there's that argument right now. There's a lot of machine guys and hypertrophy guys saying you don't stretch, just train full range on a machine. And here's my only argument with that is like,
say that one more time. The argument is what?
Improving flexibility through machines, but by training through full range.
So not stretching, but just
don't
doing
stretch,
big range of
or
motion
you
on a
don't
machine.
You don't need to do mobility work. Just go on the machines and train through full range, because they're all designed to do that. They can accommodate and facilitate a full range of motion for most people that are limited. But here's the argument. Does that carry over when you're off the machine, right? So when you get off the machine, can you squat and kneel down? And so we have to bridge that gap, right? So if someone can train full range on a leg press or something, but then they don't have the motor learning or coordination to do a squat, like how is that helping them that way too, right? So it's
or an activity outside of the gym.
Exactly.
You want to pick up your grandson up above your head.
Yeah.
Well, he's not locked between a pendulum where he's sliding up and down on a Smith machine. He might get up there and freak out while you have him, and then all of a sudden there it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Life isn't built on a machine.
For sure.
So I mean, I can pick holes in that argument with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
So, but again, I like machines.
Yeah,
they're great.
Absolutely.
For strengthening one specific area, and especially if you're coming off an injury. I mean, if you're,
this machine's awesome.
that is one of my favorite machines. You can't find it anywhere,
No,
and I
it's
can't own it. It's too big. It's got a huge footprint on it, but the pullover is it? I know that's Metroflex.
Yeah.
What machine is that?
I don't know if that one was Nautilus.
Well, Nautilus. I think it's Nautilus with the foot peg where
I've only found one of those.
You ever use one of those?
Yeah, one time in a public gym once.
Oh, they will give you.
I did like 8 sets. I gotta just crush.
You're like caressing it.
It does one thing amazingly well. Your lats will never be hit the same on anything else. And I love a dumbbell lat pullover. I love it. It's awesome. It doesn't hit the same.
They don't even make those anymore, I don't think.
Doesn't hit the same. That is a perfect example of the argument that I'm making. And that is that machines hit different than dumbbells, hit different than barbells. You need to incorporate all of them in your training, but you can't just do one.
Can't skip the basics either, though. So
I don't know. Would you consider that to be something that's basic? I don't know. I don't even know what I would define the basics as these days, because that's not how I train. Like I throw everybody, even people I've had clients that have never been in a gym. They're like, no, I hate gyms. I don't like gym people. I don't want to be there, but I need to do this now. So what do?
Yeah.
I train them the exact same way I train me, the exact same way I train my elite athletes. I train them exactly the same.
Fundamental movements and get them sweating, feeling good, that sort of thing.
4-week mesocycle assessment, and then we get going. But the modalities are the same. I for every one of my clients, I'm going to pull from all the different training modalities that I mentioned. They're going to be doing free weights and machines and barbell, and it's obviously your basic building blocks for the first 4 to 6 mesos, but it's not like I take my beginners and we only do machines and that's it.
Right.
I just don't see that as right. I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I think too many people do that. Too many trainers do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
Well, it's I'll say this, it's hard teaching someone how to move well. It really is.
yeah.
You know, like as simple as it is to say like, okay, like just, you know, open your feet hip width and squat. It's like, whoa, okay. That's what, you know, and that takes a lot of time and practice and that research in your own training to figure out, well, how am I going to get, like, you just see people move sometimes and you're like, I don't know how to make this happen. So it's,
And another interesting dilemma that you'll find as a coach, especially with somebody who fits that description, where you're like watching them, you're like, how have you made it this far in your life? You also don't want to exacerbate them. You also don't want to spend 60 minutes explaining to them why they don't have the ability. It's like, no,
absolutely.
you can't do that. And that's the thing too. Another part of coaching, sometimes you've got to be willing to sacrifice your ego as a coach a little bit sometimes. Like sometimes you're like, look, I'm not going to be able to get this guy to squat the way I want him to squat. Not in 4 weeks, not in 6 weeks, probably not ever.
Yeah.
But I still want him to squat. I still want him to get moving. I'm gonna have to dispel some of my expectation on exactly how his biomechanics are going to perform, because I can't have him standing here like frustrated and because he's not happy.
Yeah.
He knows he's doing it wrong. He doesn't not believe you when you tell him. You're like, did I do it right? No. No, it's worse than it was before.
Have you guys seen Diamond Dallas Page's work
Yeah.
with his people?
I
And
have.
I think this is extremely inspirational for people who literally can't move. Like this guy right here.
He had it was Butterbean,
Yeah,
right?
look at that.
Butterbean moving, yeah.
And he like could barely walk.
What happened to him? I was curious about that.
Well,
I've seen this post.
He had an insane transformation, which I'll fast forward to the end, but just look, he can barely stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go ahead and skim through the end because I'm sure he'll be way better.
And at the end, because I've seen this.
Yeah.
He's able to
like, look, that's what he was before.
Wow.
Obviously lost quite a bit of weight.
Probably 100 pounds, you think? I mean,
more than
right
that,
around there.
probably.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? Like, that's a huge one. It still is. As much as people don't want to hear it, man, it's like,
look at that.
You know, getting some weight off the body first is going to start helping making things feel a bit better and get you moving a bit better too, right?
Yep.
It helps everything.
But
that's
coming back to what you were saying there earlier. I mean, that's why coaches get stuck on the machines, right? Because you got 60 minutes and you just, you know, you get someone in and get them going, and it's just the easy way to do it, right?
Yeah, way easier than taking them through a biomechanics course where you're fully aware that in order to get this person efficiently squatting, like somebody who just can't get their knees over their toes, no matter what they do, they're locked, their gastroc, their soleus, they won't move. There's nothing you can do. You know full well that person is most likely they're gonna need work. They're gonna need probably like real skeletal muscular work with a masseuse with you. They're gonna need to be doing the squats with you for a while before they can ever reach that plane, and maybe even after that they won't. Okay. But you don't want them to feel like a failure, and you don't want them to feel like they disappointed you, because 9 times out of 10, if somebody's hired you, they've disappointed others and themselves many, many, many times over. So you don't want them to feel that way. So yes, I understand why coaches get stuck on the machines. And that's, again, why I don't hate the concept of using machines for several reasons, that being one of them. Yeah.
For sure.
But no, I love seeing this kind of thing happen. Huge transformations, people who take weight off of themselves to the 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds. That's one area where I just, again, getting back to the concept of nutrition to me is incredibly simple when compared to training. Training, the modalities of training are complex.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's not fair for coaches especially to kind of levy that on people that they know. You're like, why don't you just go to the gym and figure it out? Like, why don't you just go do that? Why is it that every time I have to have this conversation with you, you still can't figure it out? That's not really fair, because people don't know. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to perform in the gym. It is fair when you have that conversation around diet. Somebody who's put on 100+ pounds onto themselves, they most likely know that they've been doing something wrong. And most likely they know how to eat healthy. But I tell them that the biggest thing that must change is their understanding and their relationship with food.
Mhm.
Food is not there to be a source of your enjoyment. It's not there as a source of reward. It's not there as a source of pleasure. It is a form of sustenance, and it's okay if you enjoy it. I love food. That's great. Food can be a sense of enjoyment if you want to go once a week and go to family brunch, or you want to go for a party on the weekend, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. That's great. Cool. Great. Do that. I love the way Sylvester Stallone put it. He has one meal per week where he eats whatever the heck he wants.
Yeah.
This is back when he was Rocky. Now I don't know what he's doing, but back when he was in that kind of shape, they told him like, "Oh, so you never eat sweets?" He's like, "No, I eat sweets." They're like, "Well, when do you eat sweets?" He's like, "Oh, well, one meal a week. I'll have whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
I'll have birthday cake and donuts if I want one meal a week."
I like that one meal a week idea more than a cheat day, because the cheat day gets out of hand. When
Yeah,
it's like an entire day.
Yeah, you can
But yeah, I like
absolutely.
that
And then you
approach
feel like
too.
crap the next day. So
Yeah.
it actually affected 2 days.
But one meal.
Yeah, that's
One meal
Yep.
per week. If you can get your whole life, that's call it 6 days and 3 meals are correct and on par and they're where they're supposed to be, and you have one meal per week where you can eat whatever you want. That right there is actually what people need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, the biggest one for me when I had that transformation around that time, I gave a try because I was also I was trying to get some pain down too. I did some intermittent fasting for the first time, just 18 or a 16 to 8 hour window, like that kind of time frame.
16 hours where you don't eat. Is that what it was?
It's like a 16 and 8 hour window
Oh,
between
okay.
like the time frames where you can eat.
Oh, I see. I
Yeah.
got you.
That was kind of the direction I leaned into more because I had all this inflammation and I was just this wear and tear. I was just trying to just get that down a little bit, which I mean, it really just came down to just eating higher quality foods and getting my sugars down and that sort of thing. And that's still like for me, I've noticed more than anything moving into my 40s, like if I am snacking a bit too much, it's not even so much the weight and strength and stuff in the gym. It's like the inflammation.
It's the pain.
Yeah, that kind of old stuff gets a little more flared up. So I pay a little more attention to that these days.
I don't think people recognize that.
Yeah.
I think people have a misunderstanding about what inflammation is and where it comes from.
Yeah.
I think people say, there's a pretty good argument that a lot of the cancer we see in the United States is from inflammation from our food, not from cigarettes. Like, we have a real problem with sugar here. And I'm sure this is not a United States only problem, but I know United States is on the absolute top of this list as far as issues that we have. Your consumption of processed foods, carbohydrates, and sugars in particular is driving a lot of the pain in your body.
Mm.
And it doesn't, this is the thing too, it doesn't correlate directly to you being fat. You can be I know clients of mine that are rail thin because of their morphology, because of their genetics, not an ounce of fat on them. They eat horribly and they're in pain every minute of every single day. Young people walk in and they are, he is so in pain. He can't, I can't, my hands, my back, my hips, I'm like, dude, what do you and what you ate from the QT today? What are you doing? What are you 6? No, you need to be eating better. This is what's doing this to you. And I don't think that has clicked for people. They think I'm not fat. In fact, I'm thin. I can eat whatever the heck I want. That's not the way life actually works.
Right. Yeah.
You're just I just think you're setting yourself up for so much discomfort that you don't even recognize is coming from the food you eat. And that is where, I mean, while I make the claim that nutrition is simple to understand, I'm not saying it's insignificant. In fact, I would say it's as significant as training. I'm not a huge proponent of that big iceberg meme where it's like, all right, here's training, and then under the water, all that's nutrition. Nutrition is big, and training is big. They're both very big pieces of the puzzle. You can't have one without the other. But in terms of what you're talking about, your inflammatory response, your just day-to-day brain fog and pain level and discomfort and whatever that is a lot to do with what you're eating.
Yeah.
Has that been, I mean, that's obviously reared its head in your training, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I've, had different relationships with it where I was very extreme about it. and coming back to just being more balanced with things too, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't have to be super extreme here. Some inflammation's good, but to this point where I can recognize when things do get out of hand, but you don't like necessarily see it in a mirror. Training actually does feel affected. Like when I go and train, I'm like, okay, everything's kind of feeling like shit. Um, and then just taking a look at, bread intake and just like certain things, glycemic index and all these things. I'm like, okay, like just get some healthier foods going here for a bit and let the body just, you know,
especially in the West.
yeah,
And I'm sorry, I didn't make it this way, but if you're going to have a loaf of bread in the United States of America, I'm sorry, but it's not the same loaf of bread you're going to have if you're over in Europe. It's not the same. Like unfortunately, we're screwed.
yeah.
Like truly.
Is the food pretty screwed up in Nova Scotia too? Like the West out here?
Oh, good
You
question.
get some good like markets. Like you do have to find some markets where you're gonna get something that's more real,
Yeah,
but still a lot of the same
processed.
processed Wonder Bread kind of cheap stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Everyone's looking for the cheap stuff. So, and that's tough too, right? Because to eat well, yeah, you gotta fork over
Oh yeah,
a lot more too, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but it's you wouldn't. I mean, the United States is it's got to be the worst. I understand that there's a lot more people here than there is in Canada. I mean, Canada's
yeah,
got what 40 million people. I mean,
yeah,
total.
yeah. It's around that. I don't know for sure.
But it's
Yeah,
but regardless, I mean, if you're eating that kind of stuff, it needs to be in moderation. You need to be aware of what it's doing. Some people are just blissfully unaware of what's happening. They just know they're in pain all the
yeah.
time and they don't know why.
Are you still fasting or
No,
staying with that?
no,
Or
pretty just like straightforward, 3 big meals a day
okay,
kind of thing. Eating to make sure I'm
Mhm.
not hungry or like make sure I'm full
Yeah.
kind of thing.
yeah,
But that also has to align with training. Training has to be going pretty good. I would lean into that all the time in my nutrition. Like I have to be
yeah.
feeling good about training. Training like is going good. I'm training hard, and then I can lean into the diet a bit more.
Heck yeah.
Um, so
What do you do
Sweet.
for intentional recovery? Do you do anything? I mean, massage, contrast therapy, any of
no,
that type of stuff?
nothing.
Nothing.
He just
Nothing.
lives in the cold.
I like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, I like sweating. Like,
yeah,
usually recovery days, like, I'll make sure I go get a good sweat. I mean, I like juggling and I've been doing a lot of hacky sack lately. So, like, something that, like, completely escapes me from any of it
okay.
is quite helpful. But I do get a sweat on and that tends to, everything feels a lot better. Like,
Gotcha.
instead of, like, sitting dormant as a recovery day, I got to get moved and feel like I'm sweating. And, it could probably go the same. Like, I've done the recovery protocols when I've gone and visited places, and it's substantially different. Feels good. Like I should take advantage of that stuff.
Do you
Yeah,
guys have? Is it popular over in Canada? I mean,
yeah. It's
like a
more like
sauna, ice bath, that kind of
not
thing.
so much in the gyms.
Mhm.
Like when I've toured around and gone to some of the gyms, it's like a lot bigger in terms of having it in your facility. But the massage places, there's massage and physio. They tend to have that stuff built up more there. But
Mhm.
yeah, Halifax, Nova Scotia is pretty behind. Like even when I started training and became a trainer, there were no Globo gyms in town. I was working at a community centers, and
Hmm.
we just have one in town now. There's no Planet Fitness where I am.
You're kidding me.
No,
Crazy.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's maybe there is one bigger gym in home now called Good Life. I don't think you guys have Good Life
I
here.
don't
I
think
think
we
it's
have that.
Canadian.
Yeah, no.
It's Canadian and it's everywhere in Canada now. So I'm
Okay.
not sure if they have some jurisdiction there for like any of that, but Planet Fitness is in other provinces, but Halifax, um, it's still, yeah, very low key. Like I have to be online as a coach.
I was about to ask. I mean, how is your client base then? Is it primarily online? Do you do in person training like at all, or how does it work for it out there?
I've moved out online in recent years. The last 3 years, I'm all online now.
Oh wow,
Yeah, so I'll
that's
do
so
some in-person
cool.
stuff. If it's requested,
Mhm.
but
Do you do
yeah,
it through? Do you do it through like a high ticket? Like you customize each workout for each person? Do you have an app? Like how do
yeah,
you
I do
implement it?
both.
You do both.
Yeah, I like to have a lower tier, even for someone who wants custom. I usually expect them to do the lower tier membership stuff first
Mhm.
to get an exposure to it, see if it's the right fit,
Sure.
and then get some feedback that way, and then we'll bump up to some
Where's the
custom
best
stuff.
place for them people to find that? Just go on your Instagram page
Yep.
and the link right
Yeah, the
there.
links are all attached there. You can get into seeing the membership stuff, and that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Well, Lucas, thank you so much for coming on, bro.
Yeah,
This
thank
was
you for having
It
me.
was
awesome. It's a
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
great
great to be
show.
here.
Yeah, man. A
yeah.
lot of information, lot to absorb, a lot of knowledge, I think, on this one.
Yeah, I
So
look
yeah,
forward
good
to sharing
job.
it.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
When you headed back home?
I'm gonna head back tomorrow.
Okay. Safe travels, man.
Nice, dude.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. What's up, guys? Hope you enjoyed that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. A lot to digest. Definitely some interesting training modalities in that one. Talk about the importance of stretching, how it can and cannot be implemented. And I think a lot of times it's misunderstood, especially in the terms of mobility and what it does for the lifting. The different modalities within strength training, the different types of lifting that you guys can and should be doing, what you should be staying away from. This is definitely the podcast for you if those topics tend to appeal to your nature. If you guys want to see other episodes, other fitness episodes, anything like that, you're going to want to click right here.